The Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity held its second meeting on Tuesday in New Hampshire. It was established in May through executive order after the president claimed fraud kept him from winning the popular vote. He received around 3 million fewer votes nationwide than Hillary Clinton. Michael Graham, a CBSN political contributor and columnist for the Boston Herald, wrote an op-ed about this for CBSNews.com. It's headlined, "Let the Voter Fraud Commission Do Its Work." Michael joins us now from Boston. Michael, so why support a commission if there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud?
Well, that is the debate. On the one hand, you have people who say what Donald Trump said, millions of people, millions of non-citizens, illegal immigrants flooded into the polling places, and there's not a lot of evidence to back that up. And then you have the other side that says, as the New York Times has said, this is a paranoid fantasy. There is no problem with illegal voting of any significance. And if you look at the record, and as I tried to recount in the CBS News piece, there's specific examples we can point to. We know, for example, that during 2007 and 8, Acorn, a self-styled community activist group, was across the nation getting non-eligible people registered to vote. It was such a huge scandal, so many incidents, so many prosecutions by Democrats and Republicans that Acorn eventually went away. We know for a fact that in 2008, when Al Franken ran the first time for Senate in Minnesota and won by just about 300 votes, that 3 times that number of felons voted. They actually voted in that election, despite the fact that it was illegal for them to vote. That is a case where you can make a real solid case that there's a U.S. senator who cast the 60th vote for Obamacare who possibly may not have been the person who really won that election if you obeyed the rules. Somewhere in the middle are common sense reforms that you can do to solve this problem, whether it's a big one or a small one.
So there's already been at least one comprehensive investigation on this issue. That study found that there were 31 credible cases of voter fraud. And we're talking out of 1 billion ballots that were cast between 14 years, the year 2000 to 2014. So is it really an issue worth putting taxpayer money behind to try and figure out?
Well, it depends on how you define voter fraud to get those kinds of numbers. If somebody shows up to fraudulently pretend to be somebody else. But as a new study that just came out this week from the Public Integrity Foundation, I'm messing up their name, but they're quoted in the article. They found that non-citizens are showing up to get their driver's licenses. They're not trying to cause any trouble. They've got their green card and a passport from another country. They cannot be more open about the fact that, hi, I don't live here, I'm here visiting, thank you. And using motor voter, a significant number of these people are being registered to vote. According to a study from Old Dominion, they found that about 14% of non-citizens in the United States are, in fact, on the voter rolls. Now, estimating how many show up, how many vote, that's a difficult number, but it doesn't take a lot. When you have situations like North Carolina, where President Obama carried it in 2008 by, I think it was 0.003% of the vote. Only a handful of non-eligible voters, even if they mean no ill intention, they were getting letters from the local election office. Hey, you're on the rolls. Be sure to vote. They don't know our rules. They're literally from another country. That's preventable if you do the modest reforms it takes to stop pushing these people onto the voter rolls.
And there have also been a number of court decisions lately. For example, there was Texas and North Carolina finding systemic voter suppression as well, but this is based on race. That affects millions of people. Why not have a commission that looks at that?
No, I agree with you. If you find things that are voter suppression, you absolutely should go after them. We want people to be at the ballot. And the part about voter fraud that I think we tend to overlook is that when somebody shows up and casts an ineligible ballot, they are stealing a vote from someone who did the right thing, who became a citizen, and they're standing there. Maybe it's the first time they voted. They got their citizenship, and then their vote for whatever, gets canceled out because somebody else showed up. About the issue, though, of voter suppression, this is an argument that I think we as citizens need to decide. Is saying to someone, we need some reasonable proof that you are who you are when you show up and vote. Nothing strange. States, for example, have offered to create individual state IDs for the purposes of voting. So it literally costs the voter nothing except for requesting that ID. Is that really asking too much? Some people say it is. Some people say that the only reason you'd want that ballot security is racism. Other people say no, it's kind of common sense. You use a driver's license when you pick up your tickets at a local theater. Why not use your driver's license when you vote?
And also, as we mentioned, this all started when the president claimed over Twitter that voter fraud was the reason why he lost the popular vote. Does the way he started this all hurt the commission's credibility?
Well, without a doubt. And this is kind of the Trump model. Trump will point at a real problem. I think, for example, a lot of people acknowledge that we had an illegal immigration problem for 25 years where we weren't enforcing the law, we were sending out messages. It was however you feel about what we should do today, there was a mess. What does Trump say? I want a huge wall. And what that does is in his own lovable way, get people focused on a serious issue that has real middle-of-the-road solutions for reasonable controls. It's the same thing with voter fraud. For years, there have been people who are saying, you know, we've got a lot of looseness in our electoral system, particularly in 2000. I think 2000 started the conversation again because of the Bush-Gore, you know, the Florida mess.
Course.
And there have been people who said, yeah, for a while, this has bothered me. President Trump has turned a light on it. He just used a huge bazillion-watt lamp to do it.
And we know the commission has also been criticized for making an unusual request. They wanted the state governments to provide data or on individual voters. That's actually against the law. That's something you can't do. Should the federal government, should they have had that kind of information?
Well, there's a lot of data. I used to run campaigns, and there's all kinds of voter data. In fact, everything you pretty much need is public record already. And so that was, I think, another misstep out of the box from the commission that has undermined the good that they could do. You know, when you're debating about data, when everything you need to know is public record, you're not talking about the fact that, for example, in New Hampshire, you can legally vote and not live in New Hampshire. You can vote in local elections, sleep on someone's sofa, simply say, well, I plan to move here, I plan to stay. And under the current law, you can stay. And we just had an election there where it came down to a handful of votes for U.S. Senate, and it leaves people asking questions. And this undermines confidence not just in the elections. And by the way, Americans, 25 to 45% have said for the past 25 years they are worried about voter fraud. So this isn't an invented topic. Americans worry about it. But I also think if you can't solve something like this, as I think everyone agrees, it's not. Most people agree it's not that big of an issue. If the government can't solve this, make it reasonable and have reasonable ballot security, it raises doubts about, well, how can this government then solve much more contentious and difficult issues?
Yeah, and when will we hear from the commission about their findings?
There's no back end of this as of yet. It's been a bumpy road, but I talked to one of the commissioners yesterday after the meeting, and they were very happy with the conversation. There was some debate, there was sort of some politics, but they feel like the word is getting out about the legitimate problems and possible solutions for them.
All right, Michael Graham, we appreciate you for joining us, and thank you for the article. It was fascinating to read.
Thank you.